Now, before we get started, there's an important thing that you need to know about playing the Spy in Man vs. Machine, and that's the confusing way that the armor penetration knife upgrade works. Normally, when a Spy backstabs another player, it's a guaranteed one-hit kill, and the same goes for the typical robot in MVM. But obviously, this would be overpowered against a giant heavy with 5,000 health, so instead, backstabs against giants are hard-coded to do 750 base damage. This is further modified by a 75% resistance factor, or armor, to backstab damage. This brings the total effective base damage down to 187.5. Now, here's the important part. The armor penetration upgrade at the upgrade station says that it increases damage by 25%. And it does, but it's calculated based on the original 750, not the reduced 187.5. As a result, the first level of armor penetration doubles damage, and maximum armor penetration quintuples the total to 937.5 per stab. That's nearly an entire sticky trap's worth of damage. Basically, armor penetration is a big deal. So with that out of the way, let's begin. In Man vs. Machine, the Spy's specialty is killing giant robots, and the more fearsome and dangerous the giant robot is, the better the Spy tends to be in comparison to other classes. This is because his disguises allow him to get in close and then deal massive backstab damage. Now, ever since the Two Cities update in 2013, the medic has had an overpowered bullshit shield that allows pocket heavies to W+M1 at the robots with their brains turned off. Bad! This partially defeats the purpose of the Spy, but in the absence of a semi-competent pocket heavy, the Spy is still a great and, dare I say, much more fun choice for carrying your team through difficult missions. The Spy's true primary weapon is his knife, and you have several options to choose from. First, the stock knife is always a solid choice. However, I personally use the Big Earner, which at the cost of a 25-point reduction in health, helps you to recharge your watch faster when you backstab robots. It also grants a speed boost on kill, which is extremely useful. The Conniver's Kunai is also a good choice. It significantly reduces your base health, but it also basically turns robots into health packs. On the other hand, I can't help but see the Spycicle as anything but a straight downgrade from the stock knife due to the massive inconvenience of fire making you completely lose your weapon. But broadly speaking, it is a viable option. Finally, your Eternal Reward is easily the worst knife, with so many downsides that I'm not even going to try to list them all. The Spy's next most important weapon is his watch. The Dead Ringer is by far the best choice because the other watches serve almost no purpose in MVM. It is forgiving of mistakes and helps you to escape from bad situations. However, contrary to popular belief, a Spy can usually still function on most official missions with just a stock Invis Watch. It is much, much harder, but just FYI in case the item servers are down. Next up, your gun really isn't important. Take your pick based on what you plan to use it for and on your personal preference. Your Sapper choice is also inconsequential since the red tape recorder is almost a reskin of the stock Sapper for Man vs. Machine. Both weapons allow you to temporarily deactivate a non-giant robot or to slow down a giant scout. This ability can be upgraded to affect multiple robots within a progressively larger radius, but it has a fixed cooldown timer, so you can't spam it. Your disguise kit does matter though. Pick a disguise like Scout so you don't unnecessarily nerf your movement speed, and stick with it. See below in the description for a convenient auto disguise script if you don't have one already. Effective upgrades are basically half the difference between a good player and a bad player in Man vs. Machine. The two most important upgrades for the Spy are armor penetration and movement speed. You need to be able to move fast and hit hard. Use your judgment, but I usually fully upgrade both of these before buying anything except for crit resistance when applicable, and maybe wait to heal myself if health packs are scarce. Health on kill for your knife is a good way to do this, but I tend to prefer health regen when playing the Spy on missions with lots of giants. This upgrade has a bad reputation because health on kill is a much better option for many classes, but one tick of health regen can actually be pretty good for classes like the Spy. I'll throw a quick explanation up on the screen for you to read if you'd like. After these bare essentials, then you can start picking secondary upgrades. In no particular order, knife attack speed helps you to kill giants and chain stab groups of robots slightly faster. Blast, bullet, and fire resistance can make you less reliant on the dead ringer, and Sapper Power can make you a little more effective against groups of regular robots. Note that I do not generally recommend buying Sapper Power early in the game. This is a noob move. Sapper Power is an expensive upgrade, and even in a best case scenario where robots are spawning in neat little tightly packed groups of 12 at a frequency that syncs up neatly with the Sapper cooldown timer, you're still doing less than you would be by just stabbing a giant robot a few times. Sapper Spies are a big part of the reason that a lot of people think this class is weak in MVM. Don't be part of the problem. Anyway, if you're on a mission with lots of cash and you still have money to burn, buy whatever you think might help. I've seen people do amazing things with increased jump height. As I said before, the Spy is essentially a giant slayer in Man vs. Machine, and generally speaking, he should always go after the highest health targets on the battlefield. It helps to think of giant robots in terms of how many backstabs it takes to kill them with armor penetration fully upgraded. Most giant scouts take 2 stabs to kill, but armored scouts take 4. Giant pyros barely take 4 stabs, demo men take a solid 4, and giant soldiers usually take 5. Giant medics have more health than giant soldiers, but still only take 5 stabs. Giant heavies have 5,000 health, and they take 6 stabs to kill outright. Keep in mind that these totals will be lower by 1 or 2 if your teammates are shooting at the same target. Of course, boss robots like Sir Nukesalot have far more health, and there's a subclass of tall robots that have bigger bodies and more health than regular robots, but don't actually have the mini-boss attribute that makes giants special. These latter robots can usually be identified by the fact that they move much faster than giants, and the Spy can kill them with 1 backstab regardless of knife upgrades. Common examples include Steel Gauntlet Heavies and Samurai Demos. Now that you know what your targets are, you need to understand the robot's artificial intelligence, or AI. Predicting robot behavior is absolutely crucial for the Spy because the Spy holds a special place in robot programming. When you attack with your knife, gun, or even sapper, all nearby robots will turn and face you, and if they see you undisguised, will start shooting at you. The key to the Spy's survival is movement, and the amount of time you have to take evasive action varies. If you are the only enemy nearby, robots will react almost immediately. However, if they were previously occupied shooting at someone else, you'll have time to get 2 or 3 backstabs in before they turn around. When they do, you have 3 options. 1. Dodge the robot's fire until they forget about you. This is usually pretty easy with giant robots, more on that later. The point is, if you're moving and strafing, many robots will actually have a hard time hitting you and just give up. 2. Run and hide for a few seconds. Any solid object, even small boulders or wire mesh fencing, can serve as cover while you redisguise. Alternatively, you could just leave and go somewhere else on the map to fight different robots. 3. Activate your dead ringer. I recommend this as your fallback option in case the first 2 tactics fail. The dead ringer has a cooldown, and if you use it when you don't actually need it, it might not be available when you do. Of course, on certain maps with lots of spam in tight corridors, reliance on the dead ringer might be unavoidable. A very critical aspect of predicting robot behavior is actually paying attention to what your teammates are doing. The human element that they bring to the table can potentially make robots behave much more erratically than they would otherwise. Half of the time that you die as the Spy, the robots will have actually been shooting at one of your teammates, not at you. Now, good players use movement to their advantage in any first-person shooter, and competent teammates playing mobile classes like the Scout or the Pyro will accidentally get you killed sometimes. It's impossible to completely avoid. The real problems begin when a player who isn't really contributing anything causes robots to turn around prematurely and shoot toward you, either getting you killed or just forcing you to back off instead of making a play. And then these players don't actually accomplish anything themselves to make up for all of the trouble they caused you. The so-called meta scout, who goes about mindlessly fulfilling his directives whether they make sense or not, is probably the biggest culprit here. Is every class on your team that actually benefits from milking and marking dead? Doesn't matter. The scout will insert himself and his fan of war between you and that giant robot's back. Are there battalion's backup soldiers that completely negate the fan's mini-crits? Doesn't matter, he'll do it anyway. Are you sneaking behind enemy lines to head off a particularly dangerous threat before it has the chance to steamroll your teammates?
Well, golly gee, if there isn't 2 credits next to that spy's foot, I'd better hurry up and get it because a good scout always gets his A+ no matter what. That's far more important than killing robots or whatever other classes do in this game mode.
Rant aside, sometimes there's a random medic or engineer that's just way out of position for whatever reason. The point is, it's important to give your teammates a wide berth, and even warn them off if you know nobody else is capable of stepping up if you die. Another problem is annoying knockback weapons. There is a subclass of player who thinks it is very helpful to stall the robots for as long as possible instead of actually helping to kill them. This can make missions unbearably long and drawn out, and the most charitable thing that I can say about this tactic is that it can technically work, sometimes, even if it feels like the price is for your soul to be ground up into tiny bits. Air Blast, the Loose Cannon, the Scorch Shot, the Force of Nature. While use of these weapons is very frustrating for a sniper, a demo man, or even a soldier to put up with, the spy, being behind enemy lines, has the distinction of actually dying when robots are made to fly backwards and up over his head. But, you know, making the robots randomly bounce all over the place in unpredictable ways is helping. Anyway, with your newfound robot knowledge, there are some pretty neat tricks that you can pull off. For example, when it's not safe to get close to a giant robot, for whatever reason, you can whip out your revolver and take pot shots from a safe distance. This will cause the robot to turn and angrily face you, giving your teammates a nice opportunity to safely shoot it in the back at point-blank range. Certain robots may also choose to hang around a disguised spy as if he's their leader, instead of pursuing their bomb objective. Finally, you have one of the best things about playing the spy in Man vs. Machine.
Learning to trick stab giant robots.
You may have noticed some spoilers for this earlier in the video. First, you need to stab the robot from behind as you normally would. Then you learn to predict when and in which direction the robot will turn around. Strafe in the same direction, hugging the robot's back as tightly as possible, and continue to stab. The robot will have a difficult time targeting you. With practice, this technique can be used to take down a giant robot in just a few seconds, without any help whatsoever from your teammates. In the description, I've included a link to the population file for a short, one-wave practice mission for the spy. It's intended to be played alone on a listen server without any teammates, and you will need this circle strafing technique in order to win. Use the mission as a safe space to practice, free from the criticism and bad advice found on your typical man-up server. One final note about tanks. Tanks do not have backs to stab, and the spy is the worst class for destroying them. Barring situations where there are few robots or no robots on the map, and situations where tanks are bearing down on the bomb hatch and all hands are needed on deck, it's best to just ignore tanks and focus on robots. When the spy is called on to help, his revolvers tend to be slightly better than his knives, even without any upgrades. But the difference isn't that big, so maybe just switch to your knife and leave the ammo packs for your teammates if you run out. And with that, I think you have all of the basic tools you need. Really, all that's left for you is to practice and convert this knowledge into practical skill. Your teammates may have some expectations regarding your role on the team when you select the spy as your class. Perhaps foremost is that you will take care of all giant medics. This isn't really a problem since the spy is indeed very effective at tackling these robots. and even many casual players know that the Spy can easily defeat them. Since these robots tend to overwhelm inexperienced teams, some people even use the refund bug to switch to the Spy on waves that feature them, often supplementing their loadout with ubercharge canteens to compensate for their unfamiliarity with the class. You won't be needing those though, you're watching this video instead. More problematic expectations arise when other players are only familiar with a certain standardized or so-called meta team setup of 6 specific classes. Now, I've been playing a lot of community missions lately and I don't even know what the 6 popular classes are in Man Up these days. It changes over time and never really makes complete sense. But the meta that I'm familiar with is 1 scout, 1 engineer, 1 heavy, 1 demo man, 1 soldier, and 1 medic. Whatever may be in vogue when you're watching this video, I assume that it probably does not include the Spy since, as we have discussed, this is a class that requires practice and understanding of the game mechanics. Players who are only familiar with the meta try to frame the Spy as a replacement or an equivalent to some other class they're more familiar with. For example, if your teammates are accustomed to having a demo man drop all Uber medics for the team, they might take note of the Spy's ability to one-hit kill Uber medics, even though any class can do this to some degree, and assume that he can take the place of a demo man in the meta. This is unrealistic. For one thing, the Spy specializes in killing one big target at a time, and the typical demo man loadout is most effective for blowing up clusters of small robots all at once. The 2 classes are about as different as you can get. Still, the Spy can handle groups of 2, 3, or even 4 Uber medics without much trouble, so consider taking them out yourself if you think your team will have difficulty otherwise. But if large numbers of medics all spawn at once, they are not just your problem. If they're all healing the same robot, go ahead and just stab that robot to trigger the medic's charges early, if nobody else is going to take them out. Another common expectation is that a Spy can replace the scout by collecting money for the team. Now, no specific class, including the scout, is strictly necessary for an MVM team, and the Spy is a great addition to a team that has no scout to be the primary money collector. But the meta expectation for the scout is often to collect almost all of the money by himself, no matter where it is on the map or why, and even meta scout mains sometimes chafe under this burden. The Spy has to physically touch money to collect it, so if there is no scout on your server, money collection needs to be even more of a team effort than it should be with a scout. Just be aware that some players are used to mentally filtering out money and will not help at all. On the other hand, meta expectations for the scout are otherwise really low, so go ahead and embrace the spout label if it helps you convince strangers not to vote kick you for playing the Spy. After all, you're replacing that class that's basically useless anyway, so no pressure. Finally, a brief word about the scoreboard. As you practice and improve your skills as the Spy, I recommend using damage, not points, to gauge your progress. The scoreboard is adapted from regular Team Fortress 2 with little modification, and it rewards kills and assists more than damage. This skews the points algorithm in favor of getting lots of low-value kills instead of fewer high-value ones, like giant robots. But I assure you, you are more valuable to your team going after giants than you are farming backstab points off of cannon fodder bat scouts. For the same reason, I also wouldn't worry about having a lower kill-to-death ratio than you're accustomed to when playing other classes, especially since the Spy is a front-line close combat class. Mistakes happen. Not having a big kill streak does not negate your contribution to the team. Just try not to let any well-intentioned medics resurrect you undisguised in the middle of all the robots. This has been _Gaming's Man vs. Machine tutorial series, The Spy. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope to see you on the battlefield. Consider subscribing or sharing this video. Or don't! People might think you're a wizard if you don't tell them about this video.